Welcome to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe on YouTube for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in.
And welcome back to Turn Down for What?
Welcome back. We have
Look who's
Jess
in a good mood
today. It's been a minute since the introduction. But yes, welcome back to Turn Down for What. Today we have the wonderful pleasure of having the wonderful Ben Westby back, powered by lightning. Ben Westby, to give us a quick. We're just having you on to dialogue about lightning stuff, but give us a quick overview about how your lightnings treated you throughout the rest of the winter. And I've obviously follow you on X and seen some of the developments, but tell us how that's going.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try and keep it brief because there's a lot that we've been going on with, but we hit 10,000 miles on the odometer yesterday on the way home from work. And so it's been kind of great to see these like milestones kind of come up, but we've taken a 2,000-mile road trip using the NACS adapter. The Lightning, we've got it wired in now to power our house pretty much completely. We've got a generator transfer switch set in there, and we just keep using it to power things around our house. And winter here at 9,000 feet lasts a lot longer than anywhere else. We still have a couple feet of snow, so it's been doing great. The announcement of the new Flash, I think a lot of people are going to find some really great features out of that for winter driving and some winter um, efficiency that I'm going to be quite jealous of. But it's all around been a fantastic vehicle.
Well, I think we're all going to be jealous.
Yeah, with the way that Ford's been treating pricing, you might be trading in for a good deal before too long.
Yeah.
Ben got the best deal of all of us, man. He nailed his deal.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. But yeah, I mean the use case for you specifically having the bells and whistles is worth that investment because you are utilizing the Lightning to its completely to its fullest capacity. But I think for somebody like you, the Lightning adapter has probably been, or the NACS adapter has probably been a very huge asset to you with your location.
Yeah, for real. I like to imagine that there's some engineer at Ford that has just a separate tab for my VIN number to just see exactly what I'm putting it through. Because I use every feature on this truck to the max, and living off grid and at a high elevation, like I push it to its limits. We wake up in the morning, the battery temperature's cold, the orange, it's giving me alerts that I can't make it to the charger, but I'm going downhill 3,000 feet. So I'm regaining a bunch of energy. So I really do think I'm pushing the truck to what most consumers would consider the max. So I like to imagine that there's some Ford engineer who's just kind of got a special tab just up for my VIN number.
I want to get a report back from you when you reach 100,000 miles with how much you're rigorously using the actual battery pack. I want to see how that is manifesting in battery health at the 100,000 mile mark, because there was a couple articles that released that were talking about the somebody had driven the truck to 100,000 miles and the battery was still like 98% efficiency, which for all of us, that's a huge thing, because that just showcases that you could be 300, 400,000 miles deep and not be losing a ton of efficiency as long as you're maintaining your battery pack. With you using it so much, I'm curious to see what that percent might be, because really ultimately that determines the health. Because I think we've mentioned this before, but I think one of the huge parts of our trucks are low maintenance costs, but then the longevity opportunity without having 100 moving pieces that can fail on you. The battery is going to last as long as the battery lasts, and you could see 4, 5, 600,000 miles and only have degradation and still be performing. So for me, with my Lightning extended range, I could drive at 400,000 miles and just still be at the pace of a regular, standard range battery pack.
Yeah, I think with Ben and I both having the standard range, it'll be curious to see how well it does also compared to the extended range, because that's, you guys have that extra battery that we don't have. But I think that's what's most impressive about what Ben does is the way that you push it, both when you're off grid and you're driving it. We'll talk in a minute about your drive all the way out to California, and just showing what a standard range can do in all conditions. You're down at town, you're up in the mountains, you're going and hauling stuff to and from for your animals, you're using it as a family vehicle. I mean, you are using it in every way that thing could possibly be used, and in all conditions. And I think
I would say
I'm
you're
shocked that
definitely the top 1% of
yeah,
users that fit the perfect criteria for this truck.
It's
think,
it's not
the
it's not a
Ford
pavement
commercial.
princess. I'll tell you that.
no,
If
no, yeah, I'm
if
supposed to
there
to your
was
point,
a
Speaking of,
Jesse.
Ford
there
commercial,
might
that's it.
Yeah, how's there not a Ford
there may
commercial
or may
yet?
not in the next few weeks be some content coming out from Ford. We had a few guests actually up at our ranch.
Good, good, man.
Ooh.
That's
Look
fancy.
at you
That's
getting some
awesome.
Ford love. So maybe you do have that extra tab open at Ford, like you're saying.
Breaking
I
news.
just might. But I mean, honestly, it has. I mean, as you said, you know, Chris, we use it as a family. It's like a minivan, but it's a truck, and we use it for all we do. We're on pace to drive about 25,000 miles annually, which was
Wow.
about on par with our Model 3. We talk about degradation. We had a standard range Model 3 that got up to 90,000 miles before, after moving up here, realizing we should probably get the all-wheel drive version. But by 90,000 miles in that standard range plus, I probably had about 9% degradation based on state of range and ultimately how far we were able to get in best conditions. And so I'm really curious to see exactly what the Lightning can do, because it's very capable. And I think the biggest thing for me is, if range is depleted, as long as the charging curve remains intact or even improves a little bit, I can take a hit on range as long as my charging curve doesn't take a hit as well.
Yeah, I think man, let's knock out the news, Josh, and then let's dig deeper into what Ben's been doing, because
we
jumped
the gun. I was excited to get to Ben and
yeah,
jump the gun on our topics.
I don't want
the flash news is really exciting though. That's some pretty cool stuff coming out.
And we missed the news last week, so it's like, let's knock it out, and that way we don't miss it. And
I was like,
then we can
first off, at the beginning of last week's episode, I did say we would talk about the Mach-E and its announcements, and then we got really, really long-winded and ended it without talking about the Mach-E, which is not atypical for us. However, we will talk about the Mach-E, I promise, this time, and we will talk about the Flash, I promise, this time, and then we might do a quick highlight and do the rest of the conversation that we're having. But very quickly, we'll give a shout out to Chris Bo's background. I mean, come on now. That is just the definition of perfection. Chris has gotten into some graphic editing, and we've finally stepped away from the FedEx aircraft with his Lightning. And now look, we have the logo and his truck and the light. I mean, it's just he's repping well.
Yeah, and shout out to Kevin for designing, an updated logo for the podcast and for myself, for my own YouTube channel at Bo Family EV on YouTube. I've just been playing with that, doing some editing, super amateur stuff. I'm going to try to get better and better just to kind of get some more content out there. I got some this weekend from an EV event I was at that I'm going to hopefully do in the next week here. And then nothing like what Out of Spec is doing, nothing what, I got it, the advice from Talik out there, Charge Positive. So shout out to him for getting me the software nod, and then just trying to learn from what I can see and what I can do within the software, and then we'll see if as long as it doesn't turn into a total disaster, we'll have fun playing with it.
And just as a quick highlighting point, we all were asked by a listener this week, and I want to get other people's feedback. We were asked directly to host for our YouTube audience, at least, a best EV pick of the week. And so if you are listening and you would like to be a part, Ben will win every time, hands down. However, if you want to be second place or want to compete in this competition, is this something that we should implement? Photo of the week.
I like it.
Yeah.
Chris last year came out with probably one of the most epic lightning shots of all time, with like the Tesla emblem made with the lightning on the tip of it. I mean, it was like such a cool photo. But maybe not every episode, but maybe once a month or something, we can do a little spotlight on some cool photos that were submitted by listeners. Just like your backdrop right now, Chris. That's a cool photo of your truck. But
show us your EVs.
Yeah, show us your EVs. It doesn't have to be a Lightning. It's just whatever you drive, we want to see what you got. So if you're interested in this,
if it's an electric go-kart, I want to see your electric go-kart.
Nobody cares.
Let's show it off. Yeah.
Now I'm seriously considering buying my kids the little Cybertruck for kids. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, yeah. My
It's
kids
Like
have
the
a little
Cyber
mini.
Quad.
it's a
No,
50,
this is
no,
a
it's
Cyber truck.
$1,500 little like car, but it has a 12-mile range and a 12-mile-an-hour top speed. So for
Yeah,
like a kid's car, that thing's insane. It is
right.
$1,500.
So not much different than the regular Cybertruck. Oh, I made a range joke.
Look at you, Jesse. So proud of you.
I saw that the Ego like outdoor company came out with like a little dirt bike that their 56-volt batteries go into that has like a
Yeah.
20-mile range.
Ooh.
My wife said, "Don't you dare show that to our kids; we'll never hear the end of it."
I've got
No,
one of those lawnmowers that I've had for 4 years or 3 years. So yeah, that would be cool.
my kids pull out of the driveway and the battery in their little car already starts to die. And like you hear it winding down like the moment they pull it out. And I'm like, just let me show up in the Cybertruck. And that thing is going to just run 12-mile range. I mean, that thing could go to town and back. But
Yeah.
anyways, but yeah, the photo of the week, if you'd like that idea, comment below and we will potentially implement that in the upcoming. And if you have a cool photo, drop it in, email us.
Let's see what you're driving.
Yeah, we'll set up an email. I don't think we have an email address for consumers to email, so we might have to do that by next week for submitting of images. More to be announced on this topic. We'll continue. But anyways, Chris, do you want to give us the overview of any Mach-E and or Flash news that you might have that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the Flash. It's I was really fortunate about a month ago at a local dealer to see one. Did a little video of it. It's posted on my YouTube, so if anybody wants to go check that out, and I posted a link on X as well, and in the Facebook groups. I posted it everywhere. I was an absolute I hoard myself out. So
You were one of
it's
the few people that's ever seen the Flash in person, though. So.
yeah, I have. Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of
I
fun.
thought
They
that
let
was
me do a
really
little.
cool.
Yeah, I was so excited because it had so much of what we've all asked for, right? It's one, they've dropped the price since that video. The time that I did the video, it was more expensive than it is now. They've got a base starting right around 69, and then there's some different options and things. Yeah, 69 like that. Jesse's on a roll today, man. Everything's funny. The So yeah, it's a great price. They're doing incentives. So I mean, you're looking in the mid 60s after the tax rebate, even with some of the upgrades. So that was really
And
exciting.
even more so
And
in Colorado.
yeah, Colorado's got great incentives. California, not as great as Colorado, but has them. New Jersey doesn't have income tax or not income tax, sales tax on it. So lots of ways to get that price really great. And it's really what they've done. For those that don't know, is they have eliminated the Lariat short range or standard range, which I have, and they've also eliminated the XLT long range. Those two trims don't exist anymore for 2024. So it's going to go Pro, XLT standard range, Flash, and Lariat, and then Platinum.
And all those will be extended range 320 and 300-mile range estimates. The
Pro and the XLT will both be short or standard, and then everything else Flash and above will be your extended.
And when they announced the Flash, the price was $73.5, I think, and now I think they're going to be selling it for 68 or
68.9. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, that's for an extended range battery to have all the amenities. I was grateful. Jace had posted on social all over all the different pages and was noting some of the upgrades in the 24 model, which I'm sure go into the Lariat and Platinum as well. I'm not sure about the XLT and below, but the vapor injection heat pump, which we all knew about the heat pump, but like having that, like we discussed a little bit earlier, that's huge. The charge speed on the display is something that I have like just low key wanted and never like verbalized, but something I'm like, how much is the charge? I have to look out at the station. And with Tesla now, you have to go into the app because the Tesla station doesn't tell you. And so having it in the display is a huge, to me, I like that. That's a cool thing. The tow tech package now being standard on most packages. I didn't get it in my truck. I kind of regret it, but I mean, I don't tow, but for resale and overall functionality. But then walk away lock, that's a beef I've had because my truck is always unlocked because I never manually lock it.
I'm curious about that one. If that's going to only be phone as key, I have a feeling that's going to only be folks with phone as key. And so like, I don't have phone as key, for example. So I'm curious if the walkaway lock will be based on your phone or if that will be based on your key fob.
It probably has to be the key fob if I was to make an educated guess. Cause I mean,
think so.
a lot of vehicles, like my wife's vehicle, she drives a Chevy Tahoe, and it's a walk-away lock. And so if you walk away with the keys in your pocket, it will lock it for you. But then he was mentioning Blue Cruise with in-lane repositioning and lane assist.
Yeah, let me tell you about that.
Yeah, I was like, I was curious. I tried to Google it, but I wanted to know more about what that actually means.
Yeah, so I was really privileged to be able to be out in Detroit at the Detroit Auto Show, and Ford brought a bunch of us out there to do that. And one of the cool things they did was they put us into a Mach-E, and it had the newer Blue Cruise in it, and so we got to experience that.
Or what model is it?
This was 1.2 at the time, but I believe it's up to 1.3 or 1.4 now.
1.4 is what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of these, it's really complicated when it comes to their software, because the software packages for Mach-E and for Lightning, even though they look similar with the sync system, are actually totally different. And then even within each trim is totally different. And so that makes it a bit of a challenge. And that's why they really took a little bit longer for the Lightning, and they wanted to make sure, you got 7,000 pounds going down the road. I think they better be safe, and so it took a little bit longer with that one and we're going to hopefully see it all pushed to us. But yeah, I got to experience it. It's really amazing. So you're driving down the road with Blue Cruise hands-free like normal. When you go to change lanes, you're going to hit your blinker. It's going to take and then change the lane for you. You don't have to do it. And then, it's still initiated by you, but it's going to then change lanes and center itself again and take off.
That's very
cool.
And
then and when it's coming up on a semi truck, it's going to detect the semi truck, and it's going to nudge you away from that truck. And then it's going to reposition itself again once the truck is by, or once you pass by the truck.
One of my biggest beefs with Blue Cruise is I've done it a ton on interstate driving, but it always hugs the right line.
Yes.
And so I'm always manually taking control when I'm passing a semi, because the semis are so big and they always hug the line. And so I really honestly don't trust that my truck wouldn't hit that. So the ability for it to position it, I mean, I just wish it would hug the left line. I mean, I was riding the fast lane, but hug the solid line, if you will. Stay on the right side if you're on the right lane, stay on the left side if you're in the left lane. But if it's going to do that, positioning me over to where I don't feel like I'm about to wreck into a semi truck that's a very, very nice function.
It's much more refined.
This whole time I've been sitting here wondering, are they going to come out with a Barry Allen or Wally West version of the Flash?
I don't know what that is.
Jesse's just trying
to... The Flash. The superhero Flash, Barry Allen.
Oh, killing me, man. Killing me. I gotta get up to speed with my comic books.
But I do think Brandon Flash
like Jesse, are you saying like if they had a paint job or like a wrap where it was like the Flash?
Anything. I think they're gonna have to do that.
Brandon Flash needs to get a free one though. So
that's the theme, man. That's what it's got to be.
At least have their engineers go into the trim and actually change it to his last name versus like actual Flash.
Well, and on the man, I wish they could, Ford, even if they wanted to do that, it would take like 4 different modules and software teams,
16 updates.
Right, it really would. Yeah. But on the Blue Cruise too, I want to mention the ping ponging, which is already fairly decently refined. It's really smoothed out. It's a great ride. It takes and really allows you to do your corners a lot better. It handles them better. All the way around is a better experience with the updated Blue Cruise. So I think people are going to be excited for that. Again, one of the curiosities for me being that I don't have Blue Cruise, one of my deepest regrets ever. I'm curious if some of that refinement will also make its way to the adaptive cruise control with lane centering. I don't know that it will, but when it's lane centering, I'm hoping that some of that will transfer into the lane centering ping ponging and some of the cornering. I don't imagine that anything with the blinker is going to go necessarily, and it doesn't have the sensors for that. But with the adaptive cruise control with lane centering, it would be great, and I'm hoping that it still allows that. But that's still a question mark that I've tried to get more information
on. My question
is,
will that Blue Cruise update to my truck, or is that only on the trim models?
No, it will. We got confirmation from the comms team that it will update to everybody. Now, that said, we've talked about this before. It doesn't work like a iPhone does, and everybody gets the push, right? It's gonna slowly roll according to year, according to trim. It's gonna kind of get out there. You'll know, the beacon for me is Jace. When Jace posts that he's got the update, that it's starting to go through, early access program and those kind of folks. So he's
I've
got two. He's
tried.
got a.
I've
Yeah,
tried to be as cool as you guys and like try to get into the Ford community. They're just like, nah, you're already fine. We don't need you. We already have Chris and Jace and Ben. We're gonna go film at Ben's house and fly
Yeah.
Chris out to Detroit, but we're just gonna leave Josh and Jesse
You're,
in East Tennessee. But that's okay. I forgive you
you're
for
right there.
I still love you. I will tour your facility when it comes open, but
Yeah.
I am only minorly offended. Thank you. Bye.
You're right there next to that Blue Oval, and they just posted a video today with an update about Blue Oval. So it's coming, and they're gonna, when they get in your neighborhood, I bet you they get you involved. The let's
I
wrap
haven't
up on
gotten
the
a single
flashes.
update since the Tesla one. So
Yeah,
I think it was just for that moment.
And the Tesla one, just so folks know as well, that was a priority update, and they'll be different. They'll say on the updates priority update. The priority update pushes to everybody more quickly than the standard updates do. So that's one that most people should be able to get. And then the updates will kind of slowly go out according to year, according to trim, and eventually everybody will get them. But that will be a slow roll that everybody has to be patient with.
But once I get to the
that.
3-year mark, the question is, do I pay whatever, like $800 a year or whatever they're going to want to charge me, or do I freaking trade my truck and get another 3-year subscription? It's like,
right. Well, the new
$100 a year is like, woo. But
I'm curious how this will be with the other ones. But getting back to the Flash real quick, that is one of the changes is that Blue Cruise will be this is similar to Mach-E. Mach-E is like this as well. Blue Cruise is a 3-month free trial, and then after that it becomes a subscription. And Mach-E was like that too. Lightning was unique for those first 2 years, and that you got a 3-month trial, if you want to call it that.
To segment is something interesting. I mean, Elon came out and announced that basically this full self-drive, I mean, it's not the fully enhanced version, but the full self-drive is $99 a month.
So 99 a month, yeah.
Does that affect Ford's pricing model at all, or do they remain unchanged?
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Rivian was the first to announce that the NACS adapter would be free to their customers, and then Ford followed suit.
No, Jim Farley announced it on CNBC. He was now it wasn't official.
Was he the first one to announce that?
Yeah, he did it. He was the first one out.
Yep.
But, I mean, I knew that Ford was the first to announce that they would get the adapter. I have the timeline wrong. In my mind, I thought Rivian then after announced it and also said that it'd be free. But if I got the timeline wrong, that's my bad.
Yeah, Ford announced it was going to be free first. And that was kind of bantered back and forth.
We don't dare dog Ford here. Ford is perfect.
No, I want to be fair to Jim. He said it on CNBC, and there were some questions with the comms team, and they were like, "Oh, we're not sure. He might have been talking a little bit excited there." And then finally, he's like, "No," and he talked about it also on the interview he did with Tom Malogny on State of Charge. He talked about how he put his foot down firm on that some people were like, "Hey, wait a minute," and Jim was firm, like, "No, this is going out. We're going to do this for free." And then Rivian followed suit kind of after that, and.
It's a huge value. I mean, that's something that, I mean, for the drivers, especially with this push with the network where it's at, I mean, that's a no-brainer to add value to the consumers. And I mean, it's good. Yeah. That's good business. So
it put my confidence in Ford.
Yes. And
the
last update that I was going to mention about the 24 model was the fact that Pro Power Onboard would work with the truck.
Yes. And that's huge for Ben, for me, for my Christmas lights. You saw Sergio when we talked to Sergio about what he's doing with his Christmas lights. Both of us do that. So I know for us and for Ben, that's a game changer to not have to leave that on.
I'm not Ben, but at the same time, like, I've gone out and, for instance, I plug up my kids have a little bounce house that they play in, but I don't want to run an extension cord from my garage all the way to the flat area that we're going to run it. So I just pull my truck out to my road. I plug it into my truck and that works. But I'm sitting here trying to turn all the air conditioning off and get it to where I'm not consuming the battery because I'm not in my truck for 3 hours while the kids are jumping. Pro Power Onboard, just by clicking a button and plugging it in would make a ton of sense. But that's
he does that to show off to the neighbors.
It's a step in the right direction. I would love if there's any Ford engineers listening to this, I would love to connect with some Ford engineers about Pro Power specifically, because I'm such a heavy user of Pro Power, and I absolutely need to use it. Like, that's a really great step forward. There's a couple other key things about Pro Power that I would love to see in some updates, like particularly like stepping away from Pro Power relying on the guessometer for the range to be its estimator of when to do shut off, because I need percent, because where I live in the cold and off grid, the truck is sitting outside. I'll wake up the next morning, what the truck thought I could do 30 miles is now saying I can only do 15 miles. And the cutoff for Pro Power is 10. But percent on the pack is a very different story. That doesn't change or fluctuate. So one of my biggest like next steps for Pro Power is to gauge its ability to drain the pack based off of percent, not the mileage the truck thinks you can do, because that changes all the time with temperature and how it sits overnight. And so that then affects how much longer you could use Pro Power. And someone like me, I've used Pro Power 48 hours in a row. So I've had the truck on, headlights off, things running in the house for 48 hours. The truck's been on that long. But the guessometer drastically changes how much longer I think I can use Pro Power. But the ability to have the truck turned off and to use Pro Power in the 2024 models, that's going to be really huge for people who are big users of it.
I can't wait to see your video when you get that update and kind of show us how that is for you. I think that's going to be a big one. And then I guess let's talk about Mach-E before we forget, and then we can deep dive into Ben's. You know, a couple weeks ago before this one here, Mach-E announced price cuts and the new model. And I know one of the big things is the GT line is not going to have a differentiation between GT and GT Performance. It's just going to have that spec. And the big deal there is that this is the first time Ford is using their own motor. So the rear motor is a Ford internal designed and engineered motor. It's going to give added efficiency. So there's a range boost coming. And
it's like 20 miles. Am I correct?
Yeah. And so every little bit counts on that. Yep. And so that's really good just to see Ford kind of taking that step. And then it's now faster on the 0 to 60 than the Mach-E. Not Mach-E. The Mach-E is faster now than the Model Y Performance, which is another big, it's kind of a kudos step to them. Yeah,
but they're also going to be charging. Okay. They'll be charging quicker too.
Yes. Yep. Slightly increased charging speed. So just all the way around is a step forward for the Mach-E. And then their starting base price, I think, is around 40,000 now for their base.
Whoa.
So
okay.
Now the drawback is that the Mach-E unfortunately doesn't qualify for any of the tax incentives. So that's kind of unfortunate just because of the battery contents and where it's made in Mexico and those types of things. But nonetheless, it is a legitimately competitive offer now. And I think that we saw that in the movement of, all the price cuts that were going on with the Mach-E. It really moved off the lot in Q4 and into Q1. I think we saw that in the numbers from Ford. I think the Lightning similarly, looking at the Flash, they've cut the price. If they continue to do those incentives, I think they're on track, to hit that number, which would, even though again we've talked before about how it's a cut back from what they were hoping and projecting a year ago, it still would be a doubling of what we've seen in the past. So that would be really encouraging. And so I love what they did with Mach-E. It's faster, it charges faster, it is going further, and it's got a price cut. And how can you be unhappy with that? And it's getting all the Blue Cruise.
Question.
Yeah, what was the question? Yeah.
A good question there too is when we start producing those batteries in Tennessee, are they going to be making the Mach 3 batteries as well? And if it does, now you do have that incentive.
Yeah, that'll be curious to see how that with CATL and I think those are LFP batteries, so that may not probably isn't going to impact your GT, your performance, but it's gonna maybe some of your other trims it might make a difference. So lot to be learned as we start to get into it. And those LFPs, man, I'm curious how you feel about this, Ben, because for me, I would love to have an LFP because you can charge those things to 100. It wants to be charged. And at that point, I'm getting my full range, which as a standard range customer, I'm not towing, I didn't get the tow package and any of that kind of stuff. So for me, that standard range, having an LFP would be big for me. How would that work for you in terms of how you're using it? What do you understand about that and the way you're draining and charging it?
We're just now starting to get to a warmer season. So what was 1.1 mile per kilowatt hour to get to my house is now about 1.7.
Wow.
And so I'm
Wow.
starting to see some, but now going downhill, I'm now getting 20 miles per kilowatt hour going downhill as opposed to 7. So the inverse is true too. But so what that means is that I'm charging only to about 90%, and I'm coming home with like 74% on the pack, and then that's what I have to use to power the house. Now, if I was able to then have an LFP pack, that's an extra 10% that I could be coming up to the house with to using for pro power. So, and then we talked about longevity, right? Like thinking about how long batteries can last. If I can charge that sucker up to 100% consistently and not really worry about how it's affecting battery health, again, like that's another, like, I think the general consumers switching to an EV for a Ford customer, there's a big learning curve, I think, than from like a Tesla owner coming to a Lightning or a Mach-E who already maybe have some charging habits in place. And so I think brand new to EV ownership, you have the mindset of like you do at a gas tank, just fill up to 100, drive off. And I think somebody at home charging, they're going to think to themselves, well, why can't I charge to 100%? So I think for a first time EV owner, an LFP is a great option because you can maintain that same charging that fill up habit at home that you would at a gas station, because then you're like, there's something psychological about being able to charge to 100% versus like, oh, I'm only going to 80% or 60% to save battery life. Then why do I have this vehicle? Because I'm cutting off how much I can drive, even if that person might only go 30 miles in a day. It's that psychological piece, I think.
It's a 320 range, but on the daily average, you're only getting 270 or whatever that, percentage reduction is. But
if you don't need the performance, you're not doing a lot of the torque towing and that kind of stuff, then those lower trims are perfect for the LFP. And I think that was the plan. It was like the standard range Lightnings were supposed to have LFPs. So I think that's still in the offering as they go forward in the next few years. And then the Mach-E lower trims are going to be LFP, and then your GT will be, what you have today. So I think that's all exciting stuff. And that's and hey, we should segue from there, Ben, and talk about your recent trip and kind of shout out the video you did, because you went a little bit further than just down the hill this time. And you definitely pushed the limits of that standard range pack. So tell us about that adventure.
2,200 miles. It was spring break. Historically, for spring break, we go to San Diego, or at least Southern California. Even with an electric vehicle, we can get it in a day. So we can go from our house to the coast in a day. Perfect for us to get a spring break vacation in, feel like we got some beach time, make it back home. On the way home, we usually split it in half because we have the time zone change. And so it's just that much harder to get home in a decent time. So we decided to try it with the Lightning, especially since the NACS adapter came out, and I was able to be part of the initial team to test out the prototypes. And the Ford comms team was wanting a lot of the folks to bring back their prototype adapters, but they allowed me to hold on to it for a week longer to do this trip. And we left at like 4:30 in the morning from our house, and then got to California at about, I want to say 8:39 at night. But we were driving in 40-mile-an-hour headwinds, consistent, constant, all freaking day long. So we drove 900 miles in pure headwinds. So already on a standard range, our range was being cut. So our longest distance was 175 miles in one segment. That was our very first one where we were charged up to 100%. And it was so early in the morning that the winds hadn't quite picked up yet. And on that stretch, we were averaging 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour going interstate speeds. So that was really helpful. But then after that, it was downhill in terms of efficiency. I think our lowest efficiency in that entire day, we did a 100-mile segment where I was getting 1.4 miles per kilowatt hour.
Man, that's like towing.
And I was going under the speed limit, and I was still getting that kind of efficiency because the winds were just like the truck was shaking.
It shows you how much, it shows you how much that really does matter. I mean, the reason we lose so much range is the
environmental factors. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and semi trucks were being pushed. you've seen that maybe before, and on the interstate, and a big gust of wind comes, you can see the truck just kind of shift. That was like that, but the trucks were just always shifted. And so you're just driving and hoping that it doesn't like slam into you if they're going to pass you. But we had the NACS adapter.
I've done that. That's called pucker level brown when you're in a truck and it does that.
Oh boy, I think I can imagine why it's called that. So on our link, so Tesla had just opened the supercharger network to all the Ford owners, and every station that we wanted to visit, except for 2, were completely available for us. So the first stop that we were at was Green River, Utah, and at that location, Tesla's a version 2 supercharger, and they just don't have the handshake software to like that will never be available for a Ford owner. And then the next one was Richfield, which had just opened a V3 supercharger, but Tesla hadn't gotten to it and opened it up. A week after we got home, that opened up to Ford owners. So it popped up on my app. I'm like, if this was a week later, we could have used it. And we would have only used one EA station. Yeah.
Awesome.
And both EA stations were terrible. Only one stall working at both of them, derated. At least it was derated on the app. But then when I plugged in, I was getting full power. So I was like, there's just a crisscross of information. But using the Tesla superchargers, one of the things I was worried about, and something that's kind of been in the community as a whole, was Tesla being okay with Ford trucks double blocking a stall, like 2 stalls, essentially, because the layouts and the cable lengths. But what we found is that almost every single stop, there was either a stall, because a lot of newer Tesla superchargers are installations of 444, like they're prefabs, and there's a big gap in between those 4s. So if you can get one of those corner stalls, you're not blocking anybody. And nearly every station we stopped at, that stall was always open, or there was a far end stall that didn't have like a barrier or some sort of like curb to block you. So there was only one time the whole trip that I double blocked a station, and it was an empty station. So I didn't feel guilty about it. Since we're paying a little bit of a premium with a monthly subscription or a higher per rate if you do plug-in charge, I'm not going to feel guilty about charging and necessarily blocking. Tesla gave permission. We're paying a higher rate. So I know that's an issue out there, but I'm going to be as considerate as possible. I want to be a good guest to a station that opens itself up to me, that's going to be reliable and fast. So I tried my best to make sure I didn't double block anyone, but the traffic wise, there was no lines. It wasn't so busy at every station, even at Vegas, which is notoriously busy. But we just had it just worked. Like at some point, I was making a video for Out of Spec Studios, and at some point, I'm like, this is getting really boring because it's just working all the time. There's no drama. There's no issues. It's just plug, charge. Okay, do I just report how much I spent? I don't know. Like it was a family road trip.
What was your charge speed? So did you get consistent charge speed or did it vary? Like, what did you see?
Every time consistent. So our battery was warm, especially fighting against the headwinds and the low efficiency. You could just feel the battery is just, working itself off over time. But we plugged in and I would get 160, 170 kilowatts. And then it would drop down to about 120 and it would sit at 120 until 80%. And then it drops down to 40. So you really want to unplug as soon as you can get to 80.
Martin, and it seems like with the Tesla stations, we're dealing with that similar type of where the upfront speeds are a little higher, but then it drops off to a little bit lower than other performing stations just due to the charging station capabilities. But that's something that I think with future models and stuff will have a different curve. But Martin experienced the same thing with his trip that he took with his towing. He was seeing the 160, 170 spike, but then it rapidly dropped to 120, where I'm using an efficient EA station. It might start at 175 and then go down into the 160s and then into the 140s. And I'm never seeing 120 until I'm all the way up to past 70%.
What's curious there, though, I think the big difference, because I had the exact same experience Ben was getting. I was getting 168 was as high as I've gotten. And then it drops down into the 120s. One big call out, though, is that you and Jesse and Martin all have the extended range. So you're able to get all the way up to 180 that Ben and I just can't ever achieve.
Mine peaked at 179, I think, with the Tesla, and then it dropped down to like 130 instead of 120. I think that's cable limitations mixed with the machines and how they're built to feed Teslas and not Lightnings and Rivians and larger battery packs.
Ford gives you that 10-minute boost, right? Ish. And it's going to give you the full
it's what
400
they call
amps. Yeah, it's going to give you the full 400 amps, and then the way that works is it's the 400 amps and then your battery pack voltage. So that's going to be a higher charge if you're in the middle of the pack than it is if you're at the lower end. Until it gets to a certain point, your pack voltage is going to be lower if you're down to like 5%. So your initial plug-in won't be as high until it gets up. So if you are at a 20, 30, 40%, you'll get a much better boost for longer than you will if you're lower. After that 10 minutes is over, it's going to get down to your normal kind of charge curve, which for Ben and I in the standard range is lower than the extended. You guys on the extended. So for Ben and I, we don't see that drop off like you guys do. We are going to get, and you let me know, you do a lot more charging than I do, Ben, but I got the exact same 120-ish on any EA station I've ever been to but I've never seen a 168. That was the highest I've ever had, but the extended range can hold the higher charge longer because you guys have the extra battery management, the coolant. So it's not the charger. It really is the truck that in the standard range, it's going to drop down to that 120 for us, whereas it more gradually for you guys. And that's because of the standard range. Is that what you see, Ben, on your EA and EVgo? Is that?
Yeah, for the most part. I've got the tow, the max tow stuff too. So I've got the double
so
cooling
you have it
as well.
Interesting.
So I knew I was going to do some towing, but I wanted to get that feature because I often DC fast charge. So I knew that maybe having that extra cooling, especially in the summertime when it's hot, would particularly maybe help with that. But the other interesting thing about the Tesla supercharging is the time of use charging. So especially like in some of the urban areas, if we pulled into our hotel kind of late, we got like a day out and about, and it got the kids settled. I looked on the app and I'm like, oh, we just hit the late night timing. And so
yes,
I went from paying 30 or 42 cents a kilowatt hour. There was a supercharger 2 miles from our hotel. And after like 10 p.m., it was 18 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And so it was like insanely cheap. It was $15 to go from 4% to 90%. I'm like, I'm writing this one out. I'm going.
When will the charger stop?
Yeah.
we talked about
cheap.
We talked about this when we were talking about the charging with Chris Kaiser and how like out here in California, I can charge. There's one 5 minutes down the street from my work. And it is all afternoon. In fact, it goes down to 24 cents. And then traditionally around here at 11 o'clock at night, it drops to 24, 25, 26 cents. Typically, it's 50 to 60 cents. And you can't even get 20-cent charging, 24, 25-cent charging at home. With our local utility, it starts in the mid to high 30s. So whatever Tesla's doing to pull that off, that is amazing. So yeah, to your point,
but like for a family road trip and like you'd rather spend your money at the amusement park than on gas, electrons, like that was a really helpful thing of like, okay, I can time it so I can charge at night.
Yes,
kids are in bed, my wife is settled, this is my alone time, plug in $15, we're charged up.
It's awesome. That's great. So as you were traveling across the country, not across the country really, but across the West, right?
Yeah.
What did you get in terms of when you're plugging in and talking to other Tesla owners? Did you have some people there curious about it? You got your truck loaded up, you got your family in it.
Oh, so we had all kind. Well, for starters, we brought our George Foreman grill. We brought our Nespresso machine. Like we brought hot dogs and hamburgers. Like we were doing tailgate grilling at the Tesla superchargers. So we pull up. It's like lunchtime. We know we're going to be here for about 25, 30 minutes because that's about how long our charging sessions were. And we'd be grilling and people I had one guy come up to me because he was like a security guy for that parking mall or something. He thought I was icing the station. And then he realized I was actually charging. And then he realized I was using the truck to grill food. And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, it's Ford's electric truck, but we get to be on Tesla now. So, I'm charging here on a Tesla station, but we're also grilling burgers. Because the nice thing is you can use Pro Power while you're DC fast charging. So we would,
we were making our own food instead of going out to eat. And so that was drawing people. Like, food draws people in, right? So,
Yeah, it does.
so the Tesla Model 3 next to us is smelling our burgers, and they're like, "Whoa, is it lunchtime? Like, what's going?" It sparked a lot of great conversations, because it was less about the fact that we could charge on the Tesla, and we're talking more about the features that the truck had. And so it was a really cool opportunity to talk to people. Having people discover that we're charging. Almost nobody was like, "Oh, I can't believe that you guys get to use this now. Like, that's not fair." Like, that was never part of any conversation we were part of. It was more like, "Oh, you're charging here now. Like, oh, what does your truck do?" Like, things like that. And for our kids, the really special moment was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Our special moment was we were at Barstow, and we saw our Cybertruck in person for the first time. So that was a big deal for our family, because it was really cool that we parked right next to it. We're both in pull-throughs, and it was a really great opportunity to kind of really compare the sizes and what they looked like. And I got to tell you, I'm the kind of person that when I saw the Cybertruck in person, I'm like, ooh, that is nice. Because I'm thinking about like what I could do with that up at the ranch and not worry about it getting scratched or dented or anything like that. But it was a great trip. We had no range anxiety, even with the high winds. The truck performed exactly as we wanted to do. We didn't have any faults, no issues that came up with our like 12 volts. All the Tesla charging sessions worked exactly as they're supposed to. It was way more affordable than Electrify America. And at the end of the day, 2,200 miles, we paid about $300 in charging.
That ain't bad at all. That ain't bad at all.
And you talk about all that in your video. You break it down, like your cost per mile compared to what it would have been with gas. Yeah. And so as we kind of wrap up here, I want to make sure everybody kind of knows where to find it, because I saw 2 different videos, Ben. I saw one on your personal page, and then I saw a much more in-depth one on Out of Spec Guide. So
that's correct.
Just as we close it out here, tell folks where to see all those great details, because you really did a great job, and you were a great ambassador for not just the Lightning, but really for EVs, and just how great it is as a family vehicle. Yes. Love people to see this, check it out. Where can they find it, and shout that out?
For sure. So with Out of Spec, like, something that I kind of want to bring to the table is having a family, having pets. We're doing a lot of family activities. What does it look like to drive cross country with an electric vehicle? Normally Kyle Connor and his team, they do fantastic road trip videos, but it's like they're cannonballing, they're racing, they're pushing their vehicles to the limit, which is really great and awesome data to have. But for someone like me, it's like, well, okay, I don't want my wife to stress about pulling in at 2%. Our kids don't necessarily want to sit at a charger for like 3 seconds just to go to the next one 50 miles away. And I'm being, of course, hyperbolic. But I wanted to bring to the table like these, like, we're going to do a leisurely family road trip. Like, this is a family hops in the car. We're going to go on spring break. Like, what does that look like in an electric vehicle, and in one that's a standard range as well? And with the F-150, I mean, like we said a little bit earlier, we use it like a minivan. Like, it's an absolute family hauler for us. So in Out of Spec Guide channel on YouTube, you can find the details of the trip itself, the charging sessions, the experiences we had in traveling cross country and navigating Southern California, being from Western Colorado. And so that's an Out of Spec. And my own personal YouTube channel, I did a family review halfway through the road trip, thinking, what does a car look like when you're halfway through a road trip with your family? It's not pretty. And so what does that then also look like if it's an electric vehicle? We've been picnicking out of this thing, tailgating. We've been at the beach. There's sand everywhere. Our dogs have been in it. Like, how does an EV handle a family lifestyle? So I did a short little like family review on my own personal channel, and that's also on YouTube. You can look up Ben Westby F-150 Lightning, or Backroads EV is another one.
It was really great, because I love seeing your 2 girls back there with the dog, and it was. And then one of my favorite little things that I don't know if anybody's gonna notice, you guys were playing tic-tac-toe on the side of the truck.
My kids were.
Yes. As a dad of 2 youngsters, I got an 8 and a 10-year-old. I saw it, and I glowed with how that is the perfect example where you're going from extremes of going up into the mountains, powering your house, and then you've got your kids playing tic-tac-toe like next to the beach,
waiting for their hot dog to get cooked.
Yes, as you're grilling it. I mean, the range of the Lightning, not just the range, but the range of what it can do for a family. You were great like check out the video, guys. It is really fun, and it's really heartwarming and just a fantastic demonstration.
Now I will say, if we get
and very amateurish, I will say that it's not my full-time gig.
But hey, people, look at the comments. People were loving that, Ben. Like they were in there saying, "Hey, it was really great to see just a real family, a real, like, just not a polished, right?" I think that resonated with a lot of people. Go in and check out your comments if you haven't seen on the YouTube yet. I think people loved that about it, man.
Yeah.
Josh, you had something you were.
I was gonna say, just imagine now taking that same experience and having a 400-mile range and 250 charging speed. Then we're really cooking with oil. But
yeah,
what do I
know?
It's hopefully it's coming in T3, man. You guys are gonna build it out there in Tennessee, so
we'll see.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Next steps. Well, Ben, it's always a privilege to have you on. We'd love to have you back on again sometime soon to continue to talk
I appreciate
about
that. Thank
crazy
you.
things you do with Lightning. We can maybe even do a breakdown of your media release or whatever you want to call that coming soon. So,
well, we are going to be doing some dispersed backwoods camping out in Moab mid-May. I'm contemplating taking my Starlink with us, and because we're going with a friend group, and it'd be kind of fun to do like a movie night out in the middle of nowhere.
You have to do it. Have to do it. Don't even contemplate.
Lightning.
Yes, don't contemplate that. Make that happen, man.
Absolutely, 100%.
But gentlemen, I always enjoy having conversations with you all. It's great to just kind of chat about just how things are going in the EV world and the EV space, Jesse and Josh. Just congratulations on the news for you, gentlemen, and look forward to hearing some of the updates that you put forth in the next upcoming months.
Coming soon.
Yeah,
more details. All right.
Well, thank you for having me.
Next week. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. See you then.